Welcome back to another exciting episode of The Doing Good Show. I'm your host, Andrew, and my guest today is Cristian Garcia, Associate Director of Product Management, specifically with a focus on insurance. Not a space that people always think of necessarily when we think about the what we've done so far on the show. And so I'm very, very grateful to have my dear friend here to be able to share his perspective on doing good, the nature of finding meaning in work, some of his extracurricular activities that he spent so much time building and creating, honestly, I think a huge impact in the world. And so I'm very excited to hear Cristian's story today, and I hope that you will find it equally invigorating because it's nice to get lots of perspectives from different people across the world. Granted, he is based in the UK, so I mean, the perspective is originating from Chile. So Cristian, give us a little background, bud. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us about yourself, dude. How did you come to the UK? How did you end up in the career that you're in? And, just paint the story for all of us.
I'll do it. Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. Very happy to be here. And I think this is the first time that I'm on the other side, on the receiving end, and someone's asking me stuff to me. It's always me asking stuff.
Good.
Which is cool. So yeah, I am from Santiago, Chile, quite far from the UK. And I think there's a sort of context for you to understand my traveling and me going abroad and exploring the world. I grew up in Chile in the 80s and 90s. We went from dictatorship into democracy in 89, right? And in the 90s, we had this massive influx of American influence. And I remember at that time I had MTV, television, USA Network, the Goonies. Man, I remember having, what's his name, Rod Stewart concert, Pepsi, Coca-Cola. Yes. Those things were not existing in the 80s when I grew up. And that started to, poke my interest. I remember watching WWF. That's one of the ways in which I started to understand English, right? So you have to imagine this country that it was quite gray because it was coming out of dictatorship. And then in the 90s, you have this influx of influence, people with different colors, different haircuts, different, origins. And that got my attention deeply. And then you fast forward to my first job. I've only worked 3 years in Chile. And I was doing something similar to what I'm doing now. It just had a different name.
Okay. The evolution?
Exactly. It was just building. It was a university, a large university. And while I was doing that job, I realized that I had a threshold, right? I was in my mid-20s. It was my first job. I was quite new. But I realized that if I wanted to talk to other people, I needed to enhance my knowledge and my understanding of business. And that opened a different door. That's the first time that I'm thinking about doing an MBA abroad. And a very important thing, I'm a only child of a single mom, Violeta Garcia. My mom, very proud of my mom.
Legend. Love her. She's incredible.
So she always pushed me to explore. Right, when she was younger, she was doing traveling by herself, and I never had people around me that traveled and that explored. She was always pushing me to do all of that. Long story short, I ended up by myself coming up with the idea of doing an MBA. I did a lot of research about master MBA, GMAT, GRE, all of that stuff. And I ended up applying to Babson in Boston, Copenhagen Business School, and Politecnico di Milano, which is the first one that accepted me. And then I was in my, late 20s, and then I decided to give it a go and to go to Italy. So there's a sort of confluence of things happening, a country that is opening. I got my first computer in the late 90s when I was still in school.
Yeah.
That opened the world to me, the internet. Then me working and realizing that, oh God, I study marketing. I never did marketing.
That is a big pivot from your current world.
And that happens to so many people, right? We study A, we end up doing B. So the job again, I'm like, I'm not able to keep a conversation that makes sense with other people because I'm lacking so many tools. So I have to study abroad idea, right? And then I leave the country and I go to Milan And it was
First off, that's
just
pretty crazy, right? Most people never leave their home country.
yeah.
Right? That's insane.
That is, and I went to that country because I was doing my math in my head. I thought I'm going to learn a third language, Italian, which I never did. I understand, but I never did. And then
No
I was
parla
thinking,
italiano.
then I thought it's going to be a soft landing, and it was, but it was too soft. Meaning, I was surrounded by Peruvians and Colombians and Chileans, and I was like, "This is South America, right? This is the same thing that I was trying to not leave,
Get away
but
from.
exactly, I wanted to see other things. So I stayed in Italy for almost 3 years. I worked for IBM. I did my master's, but something interesting happened, which is I've done an exchange in India, and that was going
Okay.
to Mars, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
going to Mars. That's going to like somewhere totally crazy.
No Chileans or Peruvians
Oh
working with you
man,
in Bangalore.
everyone thought I was Indian. Everyone thought that I was Indian. But anyway, totally different. And I was there for an exchange, like a term or something. And then I went back to Italy. But I never forgot that. And I think I'm a social person, so I met lots of people. Lots of people from everywhere in India, man. Like, you name it, I knew someone. And very smart people. And I ended up working for an Indian company years after in Bangalore, and that company sent me to the UK. So that's the long answer to your
Wow.
question. And throughout my professional trajectory, I've always worked in technology, and the role started to change, mutate. One thing's take it to the other, and then I've been doing product for a while now. But that's the story. So it was my need to see something different, and then when I went to Italy, I was like, this is pretty similar to what I know. I went to India and I was like, all right, this is scary. Good,
It's a little
scary.
different.
I
little.
want more. Then I lived in India, and then the Indians, they kicked me and they sent me all the way to the UK, to London, which is an extension of India as well, right?
In some ways, yes, there are many pockets that just feel like, oh, like you're back home in India.
I know.
Dude,
So
that's
the story.
crazy.
That is the story, yeah.
I mean, one, the fact that your mother had that courage and encouragement to encourage you to move beyond the borders of home, right? Especially as a single child, a single parent, right? Like, I imagine, you know, you're her world. And from what I know of her, you know, she's amazing and she loves you so much and that she wants to spend time with you. And for her to have that courage and bravery to encourage you to think about how you can expand your mind and your horizons, right? I think that sets a tone in terms of your mentality and your approach to solving problems, because clearly Violetta, the vibrant woman that she is out there exploring things just as you are. And I think I'd be curious to understand a little bit about how you went through that process of the product management work that you're doing now. Maybe talk a little bit about what that entails, because I'm kind of curious about understanding the platform that it's given you to grow as a person and to explore different issues. So just tell us a little bit about what product management is like for people, because we have a lot of people who come from not the product management world and they don't know what that entails. So just give it a little background on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just circling back to the action of letting someone go, I think that's ultimate love, right? Because at the end, you're not being selfish and you're deciding to. And it was the same for me, because I decided to leave her, and we're very close to each other. And our relationship improved tremendously when I went abroad.
Sometimes distance is helpful.
Man, but the first time that I saw my mom when I went back, she was so thin. It was and that was sadness. That was sadness. She was not working, but now she gained just a little bit of weight back. She likes to keep
That's the happy weight.
her shape. Now going back to product, I think it's interesting. I mean, product is something that, man, it has existed for decades now. I mean, forgot the name of the first browser, NetBase, forgot the names, AOL, all of that stuff. They had product managers, right? And I see a product person. It's someone who tries to solve something, try to solve the right problem for the right person at the right time, right?
Okay.
And I always think about solutions and problems and outcomes. So I don't really think about an object or an interface that you work on. Basically, you're working on a problem, and that's something exciting for me, because you're always chasing something, right? It's not like you're not building a pen, right? What are you building? It's the option to sign a contract to get your first mortgage, or sign a contract to your next job. And that's what product does. It enables the person to do something. So the pen is actually not a pen. It's something that it would give you your next job, your next mortgage, or your next something big. and that's something that I like. And one thing that I really like, it's working on complex stuff and having these sort of aha moments. But mostly it's when someone gets to use whatever you've been working on. I think that's the beauty of, like, I've been spending so much time doing this thing, working with the engineers, and then you see someone perhaps on the phone doing something, and they're like, "Oh, that was easy. That was cool." So that's what I really enjoy the most about product. And as I said, I see product managers as people that know what to build at the right moment for the right person and the right solution. In very simple words.
Well, I think that democratizes the role a little bit. So be careful, because a lot of people in many industries, right? I think maybe this is a term that's not applied so much to, like, so the last 5 years, right, of working in a charity. I think very few people think about product management as problem solving, right? And truly at the root of the issue. And I think so many social entrepreneurs and social enterprises and social workers, they spend all their time trying to figure out how to solve problems. It's just that maybe one of the challenges that they experience is that putting it into a service or a product is not as maybe tangible, right? I don't know. Like, how do you grapple with that, right? Because I feel like sometimes when you're solving a problem, right, there's a natural intuitive answer. So like somebody says, "Oh, well, why can't I talk to the bank?" Right? The answer is you could phone them up, right? But obviously we're in a new age where calling the bank, they don't want to do that. They want you to have 60 million trees, and they want you to go into solving using the app. There's a tangible solution that's created, right? How do you think about solving problems that you would have thought maybe were not so obvious, right? Because like some of these problems are quite gritty. Like, what's the process of getting into a problem for you?
I think something that really helps me to frame that is the job to be done. And there's always this story about a drill, right? And basically the story behind is when you buy a drill, you don't really care about the object itself. What you want to do is a hole in the wall to hang a picture of your family. And that's the job to be done by the drill. So you need something that makes a decent hole on the wall, doesn't destroy things. But ultimately what you're trying to achieve is the picture that you want to hang. And I think I approach conversations from that aspect, which is, what are you trying to achieve? Why do you need this? Why do you need it by now? And why do you need it with these specs or requirements that you're thinking of? So I see my job as part of challenging as well, and trying to reframe what the person is trying to do and achieve. And many times when you get into that conversation, and you even call it the 5 whys, you can end up finding a sort of lateral thinking solution to the same problem, which is cheaper and faster. Another thing about product that I think is interesting is that I think product sits at the intersection of domain, processes, and technology. So you understand the domain. It could be private medical insurance, it could be corporate banking. Then you have the processes within that domain, and then you have the technology, so you understand how, I don't know, cloud works, so the tech stack that you're working with works. So then you can make, fast and accurate suggestions or ideas or solutioning with the team faster. But I also think about challenging.
Yeah. Okay. I know. I think that's really interesting, because to me, I admit this is maybe the narrowness of my large melon, not thinking in a way that thinks about the adjacent comparisons. But system mapping, right, when it comes to social change makers, is such a common thing to do, right? Where they say, what is the thing that what is the big system? What are the components of it, and what is the problem that theoretically is being solved, right? And so in some ways, I feel like the product management, ethos is so common in social work, actually. It's just that the people have used a lot of complicated language to, create this industry. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, but do you guys feel like...
That's interesting, because now with technology as well, the roles are blurry. So anyone can build an app, right? Now it's difficult to escalate it and to productionize something that you've done just prompting, but the roles blurred. And if you think about creativity, right? You ask anyone on the street, do you think you're creative? And they would say no. Most likely people would say no. And you have bachelors that are advertising, and you could be a copywriter or an art director. Creativity, for me, it's the capacity to solve problems. So if you look at it like that, a social entrepreneur, it's creative, you are creative, I am, everyone is creative. And I think the same sort of approach could be connected to product management or other different crafts, right? A social entrepreneur as well would be thinking, how do I make this little money run faster and longer? Where do I invest my resources? I have limited time, I have a child, I'm married, I'm tired. Do you know what I mean? So you are creative, you have product management skills just by default, right? So if you start to work on social industries or charity, all of these things, you have like a sort of layer which is a framework and you structure it. But all of the things that we're talking about, I'm pretty sure people listening to the podcast, they do it intuitively,
day in, day out.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. Yeah, and I think this is a really interesting phenomena, because I think we create these buckets in our life where we put ourselves in here and we say, I do this thing, right? It could be this organization, it could be this job, it could be this task, right? I'm curious, how do you take time to step back and try to contextualize things, right? Because it seems to me that in order to be an effective problem solver, whatever your industry, you cannot be blinded, right? You cannot have these eyes, little blinders that say, this is what I'm going to do, right? Because if you have that mindset, you miss the potential for creative and truly innovative solutions.
I think there's two things. I'm going to go with the first one, which is, I always like to say that I don't have an opinion when I do product management work. I don't, because many times I'm not an end user, right? Okay. And I can give you an example. I work on a bereavement journey for a bank. And ultimately you have to be on the shoes of the person that's been going through a bereavement recently, and they need to do something. They need to close their account, or they need to do some sort of process, but then they're not on the right mindset, right? They're tired, they're sad, they're frustrated. And that's what I'm trying to tell you when I say I don't have an opinion. I try to be evidence driven. So I need to understand what the person is going through, what is the objective that the person is trying to achieve, and the objective that the bank has to achieve as well, let's say to close an account. So what I think is that product needs to stand away from opinions, and I think this should be like that. I feel you can have an educated opinion, but ultimately you're building something for someone else. You have product managers working for female products or solutions, and how could a male connect with a female issue that perhaps they will never go through? So this is why I think it has to be driven by evidence. And the other thing that I wanted to touch upon, it's the, you were talking about how job defines us and how do we put labels to what we do. And that really resonates with me because I've been visa dependent for over 10 years in Italy, in India, and in the UK. And I really took the job as a big part of my personality, because it would disrupt my life so deeply if I would lose my job, because it meant I had to leave the country where I was living and where I was trying to build a life. And it's been very difficult for me to remove the label of this is what I am and how I introduce myself. And my human part, it took just a second sort of, a secondary backseat sort of angle, which is something that I've been discovering more recently while in the UK with all the Latino work that I've been doing, which is part of me as an individual that enjoys storytelling. But that sort of label is something that I really took to heart as an expat or an immigrant, because I was depending on visa. So I had to work twice as hard as a local because I had to demonstrate I was worth it to remain in the country.
Wow.
Heavy,
dude. I mean, there was a lot in that one. I should have broken that question up a little bit more because there's so much in there.
Know.
I mean, the first response is, I admire you so much for having no opinion, right? Because, man, I whip out an opinion like in seconds. I'm like, that's a bad idea. But I respect and really admire that, because what I feel like it connects to is the lived experiences of the people experiencing the challenge, right? The problem that they're facing, that you actually spend the time to try to get to know what people are navigating and trying to think beyond your own perspective, right? Because that's the mindset you've adopted. Is it's not about my opinion about how this should go. It's rather about what those people are navigating. And I think that's an incredibly thoughtful role in a company, right? Because most
Yeah.
companies, they're just like, here you go, buddy, deal with this process.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a nightmare. And then the second, like, just really intense part, dude, which I truly admire, and this is something get reminded of every time I talk to somebody who's navigated through so many different places in life in terms of, like, whether it's their physical location or their their career or the jobs that they've gone through, heck, even relationships, right?
Yeah.
Every person goes through so much identity crafting around what it is that they do, that it can be really heartbreaking and really emotionally taxing to feel those identities change and shift, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're talking about, like, yeah, your whole way of life getting chucked out the window because some corporation decided, hey, you know what, doesn't fit my agenda today or whatever, right? And someone is like, I'm going to save a few bucks, and then boom, your whole identity is recreated, right? And that process can be, whoa. I don't even know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think especially now as well, I think we're all being challenged. Our personality, my personality is being challenged as well. What am I good for if AI can replace me in a heartbeat? But yeah, it's connected to that as well. And I think it's
Yeah.
very important to detach your job from you as a human, as a person. Yeah.
And it's interesting because at the same time that we try to detach our value from work, at the same time you've also created, and you segued into it a little bit about talking about your work with the Latino community here in the UK, and talking about how it's kind of about for you getting in touch with a bit of your roots and your identity. That's an interesting, kind of slight paradox, right? You're detaching the work element from your sense of self-worth, but also at the same time, you want to enable those who are out there in the world, because I didn't include this in the intro, right? You are also a lead on the Latino group, ERG, Employee Resource Group, Employee Network within Publicis Sapient.
Yeah.
And also at the same time, you're a champion for Latino stories as the host and creator of Por Latinos, right?
Yes, sir.
And so you've spent so much time, not even just wedded to your job, but also exploring the stories of others, right? And so in one way you've said, I found meaning in my work, but also at the same time you have found significant meaning in kind of engaging the broader diaspora here, which, I saw this, I think you and I were actually together, and I revisited this little arch that says, we are not other, we are Latinos, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a reference to the UK census data,
Yeah.
which lumps Latinos as other, right? And so it's an interesting juxtaposition of how you're navigating both those identities. Talk a little bit about, how you ended up getting into that place of, one, the storytelling with Puerto Latinos, because you've created so many episodes and so many people listen to these stories about, what people navigate, and then maybe talk a little bit about the ERG stuff afterwards, or the Latino group afterwards.
Absolutely. I think Andrew, what happens is sort of Maslow pyramid, right? Now that I feel secure at work in my personal life, I can bring different things that are on top of the pyramid that I couldn't even afford to think about before, right? But this whole thing originated when I went to India, and it would be in a IIM like now, Indian Institute of Management is a sort of elite place. So you get really smart people attending that university. However, they wouldn't know anything about Chile. And I was surprised because I would always be bucketed as a Mexican or Spanish. And it would be fun, haha. And then I would be like plata or plomo, which was the Pablo Escobar Netflix Narcos phrase. Haha. But then I would be surprised, right? Because the smart people, they wouldn't even know where Chile would be. Some of them, they would, right? But at the same time, genuinely, they wanted to know more, right? So we started to have conversations, and we started to find so many things that we would share, things in common. But then that never left me, the fact that they really didn't know anything. People that knew football, they would know a couple of things. They would know Messi, Ronaldo. But then it would be sort of a blurry kind of thing, right? And the same thing happened when I came to the UK, when I worked with colleagues. But in a work sort of context, I'm always the only Garcia. There's never a Juan, Pedro, Maria, Marcela on a work call. Never, ever. I'm the only one who speaks Spanish, and man, I've been working abroad for like 15 years. I don't know for how long. And that's something that I was like, I felt a sort of responsibility as well to, create a good impression and if I am the first Chilean that most of my colleagues have ever met in their lives.
You are the ambassador.
Exactly. I want them to have a good impression of Chile. And I started to have that sort of commitment to, coming across as responsible and professional, friendly, good things. So they would have a good first interaction with Chile and my side of the world.
We need to get in touch with the government real quick to get you some kind of recognition for your ambassadorial work.
I know.
I'll keep that on my little list.
And then the thing, Andrew, that happened is that I was looking for role models to look up to and to admire, and I couldn't find too many in the UK. In the US, met loads. There's a lot of people from Mexico, first generation, but here I couldn't find anyone, and that's how this Poder Latino started to come about and to the German for the idea. Of course, it started during COVID. I said of course because many people started side projects during those years. But I started Poder Latino, I started recording, and it gave me the permission to talk to people that I would have never talked to otherwise. Amazing, man. If I tell you the people that I've talked to, I'm still amazed in the type of women and men that I have connected with. And I decided to do this sort of expand the narrative. We go beyond music, food, dancing, or narcos, and we have so many other things to show. And when I went to Publicis Sapien, part of the Publicis group, I actively looked for other Latinos to connect with, and I ended up in this business resource group or employee resource group that you were mentioning, and it was so refreshing. It was so refreshing to find a senior vice president from Honduras, really humble guy. It was so nice to have a career conversation with, an executive vice president working with McDonald's across the US from Mexico, right? A working mom, single mom, and we could speak in Spanish. And I was like, oh God, it's pretty cool. And again, you could get the same from someone inspiring from Africa, Asia, or any country. But when that person looks like you, when that person pronounced the R like you, when that person quotes the same jokes, we've watched the same shows, it resonates different, and you're like, man, this guy, I have people in mind. I have names in mind, people in New York that I really look up to, and I had conversations with them, and I felt pretty proud after that conversation. I was like, that's pretty cool that I can talk to this guy in his mother tongue or to this lady in Spanish, and they told me really valuable things. And that fueled my energy to continue doing Poder Latino and to do the Hola BRG. This sense of pride and just expanding to the world. What are we capable of?
Yeah. That's super cool, dude. I feel like, it's really easy in today's society to lose elements of who we are and to recognize that I think as people, fundamentally, we care about both our community and the people we surround ourselves with and the stimulus that we get from the world, right? Because I don't think any of us want to be boxed in as being shoehorned into one profile of who we should be, right?
Yeah.
And that happens a lot in society, especially in careers, right? Where we get told, this is a model employee, they've saved us blah, blah, blah money, and they look like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that question is something that we don't ask ourselves very often, because when we go to work, we see the role model and we intuit that that's who I should be. That's the way I have to behave. That's why you see those jokes about, fraternity brothers who all look the same. And the same reason why investment bankers all look the same is because there's the typecast that we presume, right? And I imagine that your storytelling, as it comes as a part of Puerto Latinos, enables so many people to be able to hear stories maybe where they're feeling isolated, right? Where they're living in another country and they don't know any other Latinos in the entire place, and they have no one to turn to understand what their career could be like, right? In a place where they're unfamiliar, where there are no role models that look like them, you establish a template that at least shares the stories of people who have traversed all the different experiences, right? No story is always going to be the same, of course, but you've created meaning for people who may be in a situation where they've just never had a voice to hear their side of the equation. And that's pretty freaking crazy, dude.
It is. It is.
So yeah, that's amazing, dude. And like, what has been maybe the greatest challenge for you, or maybe it hasn't been a challenge for you in balancing both those worlds, right? Because obviously you go to work and you enjoy the problems, you're working through that, and you're like, this is great. I enjoy my work. I find it refreshing, right? But at the same time, on the weekend, you have to juice up again to talk to another nitwit like me, right? And say, hey, all right, I'm gonna do another conversation and like, you know, spend time sharing these stories. How do you find the fuel for that in a busy life?
I think well, I've been doing Poder Latino for so long now, and I've been leading Hola Sapien for a long time now. It's been like, I don't know, 4 years.
Yeah.
And at some point, you find some sort of cadence, and also you need to find allies. You need to find people that would help you and that would help you execute. So many people that, you know, talk or they send you heart emojis, but I need doers. So there's two things. I think one, you sort of create templates, so the amount of time that you spend preparing a podcast or producing the podcast or reaching out to someone, it shrinks dramatically because you know how to do it, and you sort of package the process into something that is not too time consuming. And I think I'm pretty good at like my time management. Like in an hour I can reach out to, I don't know, man, so many people until LinkedIn blocks me, right? And I have the same message. I have a message
You're the
that I know
spam
works.
user.
I am big time, but it's a blend of using the time wisely. Like many times I do whatever I want between 5 and 6 p.m. And then you know how to run an event. I have an idea on how to run an event. I know who to go to, who to talk to payment process, all of that stuff. But at the end, when you have the conversation, I told you that I was late to this recording because I was on a call that it was pretty difficult and blah blah blah. But now we having this conversation, and it's all fun, and I'm energized, you know. So once I'm doing it, it's all good, and I have my smile back.
Yeah. Oh, good.
You know?
I'm glad I could bring your smile back, bud.
You know, but that tells me that I'm doing the right thing by spending time now.
I think there's a lot to be said about the discipline around creating structure for yourself, right? Because I know that a lot of people have a lot of strong intentions about trying to make a difference in the world, and you know, for them, maybe their career is not as, let's just say some people's careers, they don't feel like it's as meaningful, right?
Yeah.
And I find that, you know, one of the hardest things to do is to break the cadence, the template of not doing something. Right? Because if you are set in your ways and you got the schedule and you've got, you know, okay, kids, family, work, life, right? And you're like, I need to carve out another 30 minutes to do this thing. I know for some people that's absolutely nutty, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a crazy step for them. And so I think what you've described there about being disciplined, about taking it in bites, is a huge component of feeling that you're making progress on a significant journey, right? Because like you said, from 2020 till now, the amount of episodes that I've seen you create is like, whoa, right? Like you've actually put out content that people can hear stories from all walks of life. And you've done that on that quite disciplined rhythm that allows people to feel like there are people there, right?
Yeah.
And you also mentioned surrounding yourself with doers, right? That is a huge one, I think, because if it was just you doing everything, right, that's going to be pretty challenging. But you're fortunately blessed, or that you've curated. I think this is also key. Curated people who help you take Hola forward, or help like engage with you on the podcast, right? Because you need people to kickstart that momentum to say, "Oh, I want to do this with you," right? And that just could be the person you're interviewing. I mean, like, bless you for doing this. I need that momentum, man.
No, but that is so important. It is so important. And I just wanted to reinforce the idea of doing small things. I think that makes such a big difference if you want to lose weight, if you want to stop smoking, if you want to stop procrastinating, anything. Just one small thing, one day at a time. It's like compound interest, right? You would see the benefit in a week, in a month, in a year, in 10 years. And for a social entrepreneur, for someone working on charity, you know, all of these actions, I guess it would resonate with them. I'm just going to buy a domain for my website. Done. I'm going to create the first blog post. Done. Small things, but at the end, you have something that works, right? And you can show to clients.
Yeah. And I think, especially when I think about like the scale of impact that I think you've had in 6 years, you have to think like, those things came from small actions, right? Just in little bits, right? Those little bits actually added up to something that is a story that I'm proud to share, right? And I want more people to know that you're doing this, because I think people just lose the faith that, realizing that change takes time, first off, right? Like, change takes too much time. I hate it, right? It's like certainly my worst enemy. I hate that change takes so much time and so much effort for people to make a change. And I imagine that you see this especially with product management, right? Getting people to adopt new behaviors or getting to adopt new pathways. Oh, forget about it, right? I'm sure that drives you mad. But it's also immensely rewarding, and a story that like is worth sharing, right? Like, because now we have Puerto Latinos to talk about, and all the people that listen hear stories that are inspiring day in, day out, and that's just mind-boggling to me.
And if you actually apply we connect the product and the mentality angle, if you think about a solution instead of a product, and if you think about a job to be done, you kind of shift the approach into a sort of a sprint, right? You know it's going to be long, but you have a clear vision of this. I'm trying to solve, I don't know, man. I'm trying to solve something in particular. You frame it, you could see it, and you work towards that. But I think that shift the approach, and it's a sort of a sprint. It's way longer in terms of how do you approach it and how do you tackle it. But it's one day at a time, basically.
Yeah. I think more people need to adopt that mindset when it comes to social impact. And I think the people that last the longest in social impact are the ones who have not formalized that thinking of like sprints and like in these cadences, but I think they've done so informally, right? I think they've created pathways for them to say, this is my milestone. Heck, I was actually just thinking about the last episode that was published. Martin Clark was talking about how he bucketed phases of his career in building a social impact organization, and how each of those things had their own sprints of sorts, right? Because ultimately the endurance to affect change, as we've just discussed, is taxing as hell. And so therefore, if you're going to affect change, you have to be able to accept the small wins in order to be sustainable in any way, because otherwise you just go mad.
Exactly. I do feel that you have to not cheat yourself, but you have to tweak the way you perceive things, and we have that power. You can change. When you think about something, you can tweak it, you can change it, you can put a carrot in front of yourself. It's something that I do, just to keep me going when my energy is low.
Yeah. Well, tell me about what things are you excited about? Like, looking forward and thinking about, how you are approaching sprints. What problems or topics or domains excite you in a way that gets you thinking differently about anything, really? I just want to hear how you're shifting your current paradigm right now.
I want to become a dad. So that's something that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, brother.
And that's something that, gets me really excited. I think it's something that I've been preparing for many years. And it's something that makes me smile. And I think ultimately that will become like my biggest thing, right? Like I don't have exactly, like I don't have aspirations of building the next OpenAI. I don't care about that, but I do care about shaping up a little man or a little girl that will do good when I'm gone.
Yeah.
So that's a big one for me on my personal life. So let's say that's 70%. Let's talk about the 30%.
Yeah.
Work-wise, I really enjoy what I do. I enjoy financial services, and again, as I told you, that bereavement example, I think if you do a good job, if you're working on something that matters, or if you facilitate complex processes, you could do good. I don't have that conflict of work for a large corporation as the enemy. I enjoyed, and that bereavement journey showed me that when you do something that matters and it's well done, it makes an impact. It really does. So I really want to continue working on this space. I want to continue deepening my domain expertise. I really enjoy problems. I enjoy tackling problems, and I want to get very involved with advocacy for Latinos. I don't know in what shape or form.
Brother, you are already very involved, so you're gonna have to tell me what does even more look like. Tell me about that.
And I think it goes beyond the UK. I think now I'm pretty strong in London. I know so many Latinos from so many walks of life in the UK, in the US. So I think I would like to I don't know, man. I think live events is something that I would like to explore more. I think there's real magic when to get to see each other,
Yeah.
hug. You're so tall, you're so small, that sort of thing. When we see each other, when we feel each other, this magic. So I would like to do more in-person things. That's definitely something that I would like to explore. Becoming a dad, 70%, continue working on financial services, things that have meaning for me, 20%, and then a big 10% of doing, face-to-face things with other Latinos. And with people that want to know more about us, right? It's just not a sort of gang.
Yeah.
Just talk
It's welcoming
amongst each
everyone.
other. And this is something important, Andrew, that I was thinking of as you were speaking. But Latino, it's important that we keep our roots, but at the same time, we have to connect with all the other nationalities. And at the end, man, the one thing that I've learned is that we're all the same. We want to be loved. We want to pay our mortgages. We want to have our families in good health. Do you know what I mean? So we keep the heritage, but at the same time, we connect to everyone else. And at the end, we realize we're on the same spot we started. We're all humans, and we're just trying to be happy.
Yeah, amen to that, dude. I mean, that's some deep stuff right there, man. I mean, it even got me slightly emotional in the eye thinking about yeah, dude, fundamentally, that's what we're all looking for, right?
Exactly.
And I love that example about the bereavement story because I think, I have a friend who's going through this right now, and I was thinking about how difficult that journey is, right?
Yeah.
And how much gets put upon the person to navigate. And I think a lot of people don't realize the impact that corporations have on those moments, right? Like, I think actually both when you and I moved to this country, I'm sure we both experienced the nightmare of setting up a bank account.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And these are experiences that, like, so many people experience on a day-to-day basis. And if a person was just being thoughtful about that at a corporate job, in some kind of role, right, they could actually make a material difference on the quality of life for so many people. And that seems meaningful to me. I don't know what more you could ask for. Like, you change millions of people's lives.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, God. It's crazy. Ugh.
I know.
Okay. So then my final thought and question to you is one that's a newer question to me, but I think this makes sense as being something that I would love to hear more people talk about. What is a dream meaningful career to you look like? What does a dream job that's meaningful? What is a dream, balance of the portfolio? What does your time spent? How does that look meaningful for you in a dream situation?
Can I be playful and think about something that I'm not doing but I would love to do and
Yes,
I dream
please,
about?
please. Yeah.
I think really, Andrew, you know me, something that I will do. I don't know when. I think there's a magical age for humans between, I don't know, man, like between 8 and 13, the sort of transition between being a girl into a teenager or a boy into a little man. And I would love to create a story for that specific audience. I am platform agnostic.
Yeah.
But if I think about me, so I don't know, man, it could be a play, it could be a podcast, it could be a movie, it could be a documentary.
I want a play.
I'll be there, man. I'll be
I'm waiting for
performing and
this.
directing. But when I think about me and I think about the impact that the Goonies left, Arnold, I don't know, man, things that I was consuming, and every time that I go back, I have a sort of fond feeling. A dream job for me, or a dream endeavor, it would be to create something for kids that age, so I could give them something they could go back to when they're 30 or 40 and they're tired and they're frustrated. And they have this sort of safe space, and they go back to the story that I helped create, and they have a sort of safe place. So I would love to create a sort of mystery story for that specific age, because I think it's a sort of transitioning age. When you become 13 or 14, you start to lose innocence. You realize perhaps that I don't know, Christmas are not what you were expecting, and your parents are getting you presents. So you start to wake up, and you have this sort of, you start to get detached from your parents. You want to be an adult. You want to hang out with the boys, but at the same time, you're still a child. So I would love to create something that I would impact as many people as possible, and give them that safe space. So when they're older, they could go back to those memories and think, oh my God, I used to watch this with my mom, my dad, my siblings, and life was so cool. So that's something that I would love to do.
That's incredible, dude. I love that answer so much, because I don't think, I don't know. I would love to hear more people give answers like that because I want to know what goes on in people's minds, right? The idea to create something so like I can think of things as you were talking about, right? Shows that I go back to moments of my
Yeah.
youth, right? That I'm like, those are things I resonate with deeply. And they are my safe place, and they are those things that like are huge formative experiences for me.
Exactly.
And I love that the other thing that I love about this is that it's not in the domain that you're in now either, right? It's not, I mean, it could be, right? I mean, I'm not limiting you, right? I don't want to stop you from any innovations there, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like the thing that people would automatically guess. You know what I mean? Like no one's guessing that, I think. If you were like, I would not have guessed that. Like there's just no way I would have picked that up, Christian. Like, and I know you pretty well.
You know what? I think this is something that's been like inside of me for years, and I've written something. I have a draft on Google Drive. I don't know,
And
100
you
pages.
haven't shared this with me?
It's in Spanish.
I can read it in Spanish. They got chat GPTs.
I'll share it. And you know what? The exercise, the process of writing, it was so fulfilling. But I was writing it for someone else, and that was as fulfilling as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's something that I could do as in human to human sort of thing. The only reward is that sort of safe space when you're older, and
Yeah.
how good do you feel when you think about that
Oh,
in
that's
years from
brilliant,
now?
dude. That's incredible. Goodness. Oh man, you've left us with a lot of stuff today, dude. I mean, we've gone from talking about product management and how it's solving problems in the adjacencies, the social impact. We've talked through, I mean, just getting down into the nitty-gritty of like how you've also added into your life, you know, two components of identity, right? Where you've navigated both the work one that was shaped by external factors, but then also at the same time, you've forged a new path in creating the storytelling and championing of the Latino, diaspora when it comes to careers and advancement and how people can build each other up. And then also you evangelize in culture. And then at the same time, you're going to leave me with this grenade at the end, just like, I want to leave you guys with some nostalgia when I'm gone. Peace. It's
See?
heavy, dude.
Man, time flew. It was such a fun conversation.
Yeah, it was
so
very
much
good.
fun.
Thank you so much for taking the time, dude.
I love it, man.
immensely
Thank you so
appreciate
much
it.
for doing it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's always a treat, and I think you experience this too. Talking to guests is its own reward, isn't it?
Un abrazo.
See you, bud.
Ciao,
Bye.
ciao. Bye.